So please welcome Kara Goodwin to the show. Welcome, Kara.
Thank you, Ashley. I'm so excited to be here with you. Thank you so much for having me on Uncover Your Magic.
Oh, I'm so happy to have connected with you. And like we said before we hit record, it's those moments that I say, let's just record because all the magic sometimes happens before. And,
Yeah.
going down your podcast, oh my gosh, it's like watching you inspired me to like, oh my gosh, there's so many people that we were in such alignment.
Yes.
And then reading your book or listening to you, having you in my ear the last few days. So I really feel like you're now seeing you in real life or on Zoom life.
Yeah.
It's you've been part of my walks in the morning with my dogs in my car, and it's just so fun to learn about somebody that has been on a journey that is so in alignment with the way I think. And I wouldn't have had, like you have on your podcast, anyone that isn't in alignment. But I just connect with you. So I'm saying that to you now. We haven't even gotten to know each other, but when I have just listened to you and listened to your story and see the growth, and even just am so inspired by writing some for you writing a book. That's just amazing.
Thank
And
you.
and then watching, I mean, almost 500 episodes. You're like, you started in 2018 and I started in 2020. And it's just cool to meet people that have these little sparks that say, do this, and they do it. Write a book. I haven't done that yet, but
I'm sure it's
you've
coming.
inspired me.
Oh,
Anyway, but thank you for being here, and I'm excited for everyone to meet you. You are definitely a soul sister. These days, and I'm sure you feel the same way, anyone on your show is going to be someone that everyone's going to have this full body yes. I know this person is, we are connected and we have been in many lives. And that's how I feel about you. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
oh, well, thank you so much for that kindness. And I echo it. I reflect it back to you. I've had you in my ears as I've been walking my dog because I've been listening to your podcast and I was sharing before we started recording. I've then connected with, you're a recent guest of yours because I friended her on Instagram. And then we've like been chatting and we've been DMing each other. We slipped in. Is that what it is? The kids
Yeah,
say
you
you
slipped
slip
in
into
a,
the
yeah.
DMs.
Oh, I love
So
it.
that was an unexpected fun thing. And I love the energy that you carry. I mean, you mentioned something, you talked about your retreat that's coming up, and there's this, I can't remember now what it's called. It starts with an R, but there's some, and it's like a light thing, right?
Oh,
What's
the
this?
Roxiva light.
Roxiva.
Oh my gosh,
Yes.
Kara.
And you have
Oh,
to have a practitioner for this.
no, I'm going to
It's
buy
a
one.
device. You're going to buy one.
Yes, I'm going to buy one for
Okay,
sure.
well, I am so excited for people going on your retreat that they get to experience that and they get to be in this amazing energy that you're creating. But I mean, that just so many things. I'm like, I can't
Right?
wait to meet Ashley
Oh,
because
you're
you're
so
just doing
sweet.
so cool, so many cool things. It's amazing.
Well, so are you. But I want to, it's about you now. I know when you're a podcast host, it's so hard to be on the other side. And whenever I'm interviewed,
Yes.
you want to be the person to ask. And so it's all about you.
Uh,
Uh, so let's go down the Kara rabbit hole. And, I know you've worked in the corporate, you know, business or field for 15 years, but you started to have these things happen, and I just see it from the higher perspective, and I know you do too. It's like your soul signed up for all these things, and it's where you are now living your complete purpose, and what you designed, that little soul of that Kara that's in that little fractal of God in that body
uh-huh.
has decided to do on this earth at this time. So take us to where, so people get to know you, but there's so many deep things that I want to get into with you, because now it's like after understanding who you've interviewed is all the same. I get so excited. So let's take people so they understand your
Where I've
magic,
come
where when
from.
you uncovered your magic.
Okay, beautiful. Well, as you say, I did my time in the cubicles. We were also talking about that before we started recording because you're recording in a corporate setting right now as your floors are redone. And I was like, yeah, I did my time. I did like 15 years in the cubicles in the fluorescent lights and that was fine while I was doing it. It was chaotic. I had young kids. I had, a household to manage, and it was a lot of activity, a lot of pressure. But that's what I saw everybody doing. And I call it the golden handcuffs because, I had climbed my way up and had kind of a high position where I was. And so I had a lot of demands, but I also was rewarded well for it. And the company that I was with, they really liked having working mothers. They liked supporting working mothers. They really tried to work with me on the fact that I had home duties as well, but it still was, I was putting a lot of pressure on myself. And so we ended up moving abroad for my husband's work. And then I stopped working, but I still continued on with kind of my mainstream everything and not really going any deeper. And what's funny, I was just reflecting on this. I remember that when I was still working, I went in the corporate setting. I had like a numerology
Hmm.
session with a woman, and she did my numbers. And I remember there was the number 9, and I don't remember what it related to, but she was like, "You are a spiritual teacher, and you are like communication is very big for you. You are, you have messages that you want to share, but it's really," and I'm like, I mean, I guess I have to do presentations at work. There's a lot of communication of just projects and status and all of this. So I'm relating it to my vocation. And she's like, I mean, I guess, but no, this is like spiritual. That there's this element. I think it was the 9 part of it, but she's like, no, there's a spiritual part. And it felt so foreign. It actually felt very intriguing and it felt right, but I was so far from that. I mean, I enjoyed the occasional book on reincarnation or something that was magical in terms of mysterious, and I was drawn to that sort of thing, but as far as having like a message for people beyond just my own interest, it was like, okay, this is quackery. Like this
Oh,
doesn't
funny.
make any sense. And there was another reading, and I can't remember what the modality was for that, but it came up now and again where it was that common theme. And I was like, well, I'm getting somebody else's readings. I don't know why these things
Huh.
come up. Um, incidentally, when I think it was back in like 2000 something, like 2000, I think it was, I had a psychic reading with a psychic medium, and she kept going on about how I was going to move. And at that point, I was going to move from Indianapolis to the Pacific Northwest, and I was looking for jobs. I was actively looking for jobs. I was very focused on that. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I think I'm going to move to the Pacific Northwest. She's like, no, Europe. And I was like, I am not moving to Europe. There was no reason I would move to Europe. But in my job at that time, I happened to be supporting France and Spain. And and I was like, well, I mean, I do support France and Spain. I don't see there's no indication that they would move me to France or Spain, but I guess it's possible. And she was like, no, it's England. And I was like kind of annoyed when I left, where I was like, that was such a waste of time. And when you know it, like 15 months later, I moved to England. And
Oh,
so
I love
it's
it.
one of those things where it's like, gosh, people are really skilled, but life can just be shocking too, From my perspective, I would have never guessed I was going to move to England. I would have never guessed that I was going to be like a spiritual guide and have that communication, be an author, be a podcaster, be sharing and guiding people. So, the way that I kind of did that flip from the mainstream, so even though I had these indicators that this was part of my makeup, um, it was interesting information, but again, didn't resonate with me at the time, even though it was interesting. And I was like, oh, I'd love for that to happen, but didn't see any pathway or any rhyme or reason that that would ever come to fruition. We moved to Italy for my husband's job.
Oh,
And 2 years into my our time there, my it within 7 months, my sister-in-law took her life. She was one of my best friends as well. My Our dog died. Our And this is just in the order that it happened. My father-in-law ended up having surgery on his brainstem because his health was deteriorating, his balance was off, and so we didn't know how that was going to go. Luckily, he's doing well now. My mother-in-law was hit by a motorbike when she was crossing the street. And then my stepmom had heart failure, went into the ICU, the top of the heart transplant list, and ended up having a heart transplant. That's what saved her. So all of that happened in 7 months. And it really felt like just one tumble after the other. And it was so disorienting. And I'd just been kind of sailing through life. I'd been enjoying, our little Mediterranean life that we had going on there. And suddenly it was one thing after another. And it was like nightmare after nightmare. And in order to cope through that time, I found meditation. And meditation had been something that I'd always been interested in because, like I said, I was drawn to books and stories about people who remembered past lives or had these like psychic skills, or I loved those types of stories. But I really felt like there was a special person who those types of things happened to, or who were gifted with that type of um, those types of experiences. But meditation was like this thing that came up a lot, and I had tried it and I hadn't been able to get anywhere with it. And when my life really started crumbling, I kind of threw a Hail Mary out there, so to speak. And I had this internal discussion with God, who I look back and I'm like, was I agnostic at that time? Because I definitely didn't have an ongoing conversation with God. I didn't really feel that I'd been stoking that relationship, and I felt really like unworthy. When I get down to it, when I'm really, really honest with myself, that was the predominant feeling that I had. Not, I think that maybe I would teetered on how would you say, agnosticism.
Agnosticism.
um, but I really do think that I think I did always believe there was a God, but just that like I was not visible to God. I wasn't worthy. But I, kind of just threw spaghetti on the wall of like, okay, I need help. And I feel like meditation, like I've always felt drawn to it. I feel like it could help me now, but I don't know. I haven't gotten anywhere with it when I've tried it on my own. So I think I need, like, guide me. If you hear me, if you see me, if this is the right thing for me, send me a teacher and let it be in English, because I also, needed it to be in my mother tongue, in my heart language, so that I didn't have to overthink and translate and all of this. Because we were living abroad at the time. I can't remember if I said that,
Yes,
but
you did.
yeah. And so then things did start happening pretty quickly. I found a friend, another expat friend, and I were having a conversation. It wasn't even, I don't think I told anybody about that conversation, that inner conversation that I had, or mentioned anything about meditation. I don't remember, because it's all in retrospect that you start to see things
Right.
happen. And so I know I had this conversation with my friend Pam, and she just pulled out her notes and she goes, "Oh, I wanted to tell you, my mom recommended this film that I really think you'd like. I haven't watched it yet, but I thought of you when she told me." And so she got out her notes and she's like, "It's called Autobiography of a Yogi." I mean, or it's Paramahansa Yogananda's
Yes.
it's Awake. I think it's called Awake,
Yes, it's
actually, is
called
the
Awake.
film.
Yeah.
And I'd never heard of him. And I was like, okay, loved Pam. I was like, I really, took her recommendations to heart. I watched it maybe even that night. And it was one of those that I'm watching it and I'm like, please don't end. please don't end. I want to watch this forever. I want more and more and more and more. So read his book, Autobiography of a Yogi. And that started me on my meditation journey because through that conversation, through the film, through the book, I started to see that he was very into the science of meditation and that there are steps and there are physiological things that happen. And what I had been doing on my own was just trying to sit down and not think. And that didn't work. And it doesn't work
Mhm.
because that we're physiologically, that's very, very difficult for us to do. But there are methods that you can use to make it more fruitful. So through his method, he died in 1952. So it's kind of through his legacy, people are still teaching his methods. And that led me into a meditation path. But my meditation started very secularly. Even though I had reached out to God for guidance and to learn meditation, I was very hesitant about the way that they told us to pray. You were to pray to these gurus, and um, I just wasn't there. I was like, I don't know these
Mhm.
names. I don't know these beings. I don't know if this is like, I just want it to help me be calm. So I really kind of tried to keep the spiritual aspect away. And then it just sort of came in after I developed a meditation practice. I started experiencing things that were beyond the material. It started with just this light descending behind my closed eyes, but it felt like, I mean, it was literally, I could see it with my eyes closed, but I could feel it coming down, and it just felt so graceful. It felt divine. It felt so loving. It made me weep. I
Mm.
didn't really know what it was, but it just felt like spirit. Um, other, I also started seeing, I was like, that looks like a spinning galaxy from really far away. And I just saw this like rotating, kind of flat, starry, um, scene, which I had no frame of I mean, I had seen images like that on TV just in passing, but I had no idea why I would see that in meditation. And I asked my teacher about it, and they were just like, okay, that's cool, but don't get attached to it, which is good advice, but didn't really help me to uncover why that might be. Now that I'm further along in my journey, I do feel a connection with the galaxy, with cosmos, with the stars. So I see that in a more holistic way of like, oh, I can see why that was one of the early things to show up for me. Um, so it was from those experiences within myself that I started to open up to more than the material, to meditation being more than just a pathway to my calmness and getting some security back um, and taking control of my nervous systems because that's really what I needed. But those more nebulous experiences were the pathway to uncovering the magic, where it was really getting into the mystery and then accepting the worthiness that we are all sparks
Mhm.
of the divine. We are all worthy. Um, I'll borrow something that I heard years and years ago, but it does relate to that worthiness factor. Um, and it's somebody talking, I think they were actually talking to a rabbi or something and saying, like, well, God is, of course you're connected to God because you put the time in and so forth. And he was saying, look at the moon. Just look up at the moon. The moon is there. Anybody can look at it. It's there for all of us to look, but so many people don't look.
Mhm.
You can look at the moon whenever you want, and that is the same as your relationship with God or with source or with spirit, with your higher self, whatever it is. It's there for all of us. But so many people aren't looking. And so they're not claiming. It's like, that's my moon.
Right.
I have every right to look at that moon, and it's there all the time, just waiting to be seen, waiting to be connected with. And so I love that metaphor too, because that was a learning for me of, like, even though I hadn't been nurturing that relationship with God or with the higher self. Again, I don't want to get stuck in semantics, but people can. And I just kind of mean it generally, of this
Right.
benevolent force that is available for all of us and that's supporting us and nurturing us and there when we're ready for it.
How does that, when you look at your relationship with going from agnostic to now, like, how do you see, how do you connect with that? Do you feel like you connect and you pray to God? Do you see how to explain that part,
Yeah, that's a great
that
question.
evolution?
Yeah, and it is an evolution, and I think it always evolves. There have been times on my path where I've been very into the ET phenomenon, kind of going back to the stars and that connection where it's like, oh, there are all these benevolent, high vibrational ETs. There is a ton of information out there about that. And I've had some experiences where I haven't been aboard a ship not physically that I know of anyway, but I have had experiences that could be argued that they were telepathic contact.
Hmm.
Those are very subjective. I could never prove to anybody that that is in fact what was happening, but it very much felt like it in my, from my subjective experience.
Right.
Um, but there are other times where um, it's more connecting with my own higher self, like a higher dimensional aspect that's pure me. I do actually see the contact with the ETs that I feel a connection with. I do feel like they are aspects of myself also. Right now, the focus is really strong within me of just connecting with source, what I would call pure source light and just the creator, the origin of all that is. And I don't see that as like a man in the sky or a being, like even necessarily a being, but as a light. And that it is this, I mean, that is honestly, that is how I pray right now. Is I do invoke, I say, I welcome in and forth my higher self, my Christed self, my mighty I am presence and pure source consciousness. And then I welcome forth my divine team, and I go through a list. I say, the ascended masters, Yeshua, Babaji, Kuan Yin, Buddha, Mary Magdalene. And then I ask for the presence of the angels and archangels that feel connected to me, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, Zadkiel, and Zaphkiel. And then benevolent star family, Andromedans, Sirians, Pleiadians, and Arcturians. And but it even through invoking what I consider my divine team, and then I thank them. Thank you for the guidance. Thank you for your presence, for your protection, for your love. And then if I have any like specific things, help me to heal this, or be with me, inspire me for this, or whatever it might be. But a big part of that is help me, deliver to me as much pure source light as I can hold in my body. Help me to anchor it in and allow it to radiate out, and just use me as a vessel, use me as I walk around, and just let it anchor in. Use me however I can be used. And that is my invocation. So it's really, it all like, it's multifaceted. And
Hmm.
I kind of invoke, I guess, a lot. Maybe it sounds like a lot, but really the core of it is like, just get this light in here and let it be on this planet and let it do its work, and like just let it happen, behind the scenes, and however I can help, let me.
Right.
Let me do that.
Gosh, Kara, I'm just like listening to you going, oh my gosh, no wonder you're my soul sister. It would have
Is
been,
it so similar for
you don't
you?
need to interview me
Yeah.
because
We'll
I'm
just repost
basically
this.
interviewing me.
Yeah.
But it's like, so before I start an interview, I used to write like all that, like dear, so now I do dear spirit team.
Yes.
So I've
I
cut
love
that
it.
down and then I write, thank you for being here. And I do the whole writing and that we'd have this magical episode and that thank you for connecting, Kara and I. And, I do always do that. And when I'm outside walking the dogs, I'm always connecting. I'm touching trees. I'm talking to the
Yes.
birds. I know the area where the hummingbirds are. And I like sit there and I'm like, okay. And it's such a connection. And I'm in this place too. Like, you look at my journey of this podcast, 5 years is 7 years. And it's been such an amazing, expanded, transformative, all those words. And I see it in the podcast journey, right? Because it's
Mhm.
like writing a book. You see your whole life and how you've
Yes.
evolved, right? And it's so fun to see that. But at this stage of my life, and I know this because of what I've absorbed from your book and everything that you do, is we are at this place where I can't get, my vibration can't lower. And I'm not saying I'm not human because, yes, I can be in a car and whatever, but I'm so aware, and it's such an amazing place to live into this place of what do I get to uncover today? The light that I can shine on people. Like when I say I'm in this office and, but for everyone listening, I'm in Richard's office because we're getting hardwood floors put in. So I'm at this office building and I'm in this little room and I'm looking out of like what I see in the world, kind of like what people are doing in these cubicles. And I'm thinking, not that I'm better or whatever, but I'm looking at it like a perspective of, wow, I've really like come to this place where I can, uh, rise above the place where my human self could be pulled down or be come down into this fear place or be destroyed by someone saying something. And I do that with my girls all the time and about not caring what people think and going to the
Mm.
place where you're like, oh my gosh, live like this, start at a 10 or 100, and live there all the time because we start with your gratitude. But I know you do that too. But, you start with that place of being so aware of your light and evoking that inside and knowing that, having that awareness all the time, every second of my life, I'm like that. And it's just the
Yes.
most beautiful place to be. And I know you're like the same thing. But what I want to go to now is galactic. I want to go to, because you have all these people on your podcast that I am so interested in. I went to Bashar last year. I am all the people that you interview, I'm very aware of them. And you do the Galactic Summit. You are part of
Yeah.
that. And I was just listening. So I connect with Lemuria. And I was listening to that woman that you were interviewing, that Lemurians are automatic writers. And that's all I do is
Mm.
automatic write. And
Really?
I was like, what? So I
Oh
got
my
that just from
gosh.
your Instagram because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm an automatic writer and I feel so connected to Lemuria. But what is your connection and how do you, I want to hear your
Yeah.
galactic because I love to talk about that because I have always
Yeah.
seen in my past lives, like you were saying, like I see such a connection. I'm in the space, I can see the earth, I can activate these grid lines with my energy. I mean, it's like I could go on and on, but
Mhm.
because this is about you, take it away.
Well, it is interesting. I feel a connection with Lemuria as well and Atlantis. I went
Yes, me
to
too.
Portugal over the summer and it was fascinating being there because that would be more the Atlantis area. And just being on these beaches and seeing like, these flat rocks, these flat stones that were huge and they were kind of like at an angle up against like all this rubble and then looking up higher in these cliffs and it just looked like all this it looked like ornate designs as though rock had formed onto something palatial, and so my imagination is sort of just like seeing these patterns of wow, that looks like if you just chipped away rock there
Uh-huh.
would be like an ornate, building there, and that this like flat rock that was like so flat, um, but that looked like an altar, I mean, just all these things. And it just looked like rubble, but ancient rubble. If you use, I mean, it looked like rocks, right? But
Right.
if you know a little bit about Atlantis and the destruction, the way that it was destroyed, or they destroyed themselves, um, it was really interesting. I was like, I could totally see there being a tour guide here being like, well, if you can see like over time the sediment built up and now it's hiding, these
Hmm.
columns or whatever it was. Um, but that felt very activating to be there. And I had a few just experiences of like, wow, this just seems very potent for me, at least. And then Lumeria being more on the Pacific side, the Hawaiian side, and but I do feel, I feel connections with the Earth in those places too. Um, from my galactic part, I get told a lot that I have an Andromeda connection. So there's Andromeda, the galaxy, and Andromeda, the constellation, and I have both. Um, I feel like that's kind of galactic home for me. And I get a lot of verification of that because I've had a lot of different galactic Akashic readings or galactic readings of different orders. And that comes up a lot.
From
I've had,
Erlica, right? You had
pardon
her
me?
from Erlica Sullivan.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think she did a reading on me. But I have had her on. Yes.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
her.
She's great. And then I have had a vision. It's been a few years, but I think was it technically a dream? Sometimes I have, because my visions come in that hypnagogic state between wakefulness and sleep. So you're not asleep yet, but you're
Right.
in that like floaty space. And so sometimes I'll have like images that come in. I think this was long enough ago that I'm like, was this a dream or was it a vision? But it was like this bluish purple woman with no hair and very thin arms. But then it was like, I think I saw this image, but then I looked down and the arm was mine. And it was just this very long, thin arm. And that was really the main vision that I've had personally of myself, in that I've had another vision of a male Pleiadian, like that was at, it was nighttime and he was like standing on the threshold of a house. And I remember thinking, like, somehow I knew he was Pleiadian. This was actually a vision. This definitely wasn't a dream. But I remember thinking, oh, I guess I never really thought they live in houses. I always think of them on ships.
Right.
But that's just what I saw. I didn't know what my connection was with that being, but it was pretty fleeting. But it was just like, oh yeah, I mean, I guess they're there on their planet too, right? Sometimes.
Right.
So I do feel I like resonate with the understanding that we may have like galactic origin points or places that we favor, or maybe places where our soul kind of began or likes to go back to. But we have connections, especially people who are, kind of on the front lines here, like you would be, where, because I think there are some people who are very tied to Earth and they're doing a lot here on the planet, and they're not, maybe not doing so much in other places. And that's not better or worse. We're all like our own unique pieces to the jigsaw puzzle. Um, it's been explained to me, and this makes a lot of sense and resonates a lot with me, where it's like, okay, I came from Andromeda, from the Andromeda galaxy and constellation, like at different points. But like Sirius and the Pleiades are like training grounds. So like everybody comes through Sirius and the Pleiades.
Mm.
Like Sirius, I think Sirius is like a direct point before you come to Earth. And I don't know the mechanics behind that. If it's just like you travel through it the way you would like airport security or something, or if it's like, here, get acquainted with, if there's some like preparation that happens in Sirius. Um, and similar sort of thing with the Pleiades, as far as I understand. And I also understand that it is very common for souls to have some experience in the Pleiades and Sirius, as part of their prep for Earth, or just as part of the lived experience that they want to have. So I do feel a resonance too with Sirius and the Pleiades. I had a really powerful dream, very, very powerful dream a few years ago of being in water with three dolphins, and they started swimming over me and pushing me down. And it was so visceral
Oh,
and just so like, because I was playing with them, and then they were like dunking me, and that was kind of scary. And I talked to my spiritual mentor at the time about that, and he goes, "Well, it sounds like you got baptized by some Syrians last night." And I was like,
oh,
"Oh," and I don't even think I knew what Sirius was at that point, but because of course there are dolphins and whales are closely tied to Sirius as well. So I think there's a lot. And then there, in terms of a lot of history there and a lot of connections. But even apart from all of those like ET connections, I think that as we expand more into who we are, and as we bring more of the spirit of who we are, and we, kind of like what we were talking about just a moment ago, where it's like, just let this light come in, let it anchor in. That's more of like the pure source light, the origin of everything, where we, the real origin, where it's kind of, we start from that point, and everybody starts from that point, but we can get disconnected from it. And a lot of people, our society is sort of oriented right now in that disconnection. It
right.
doesn't really support that connection. But as we connect more, and as we come into the fullness of who we are, part of it is embodying that original source light. So I think, you go even beyond those ET experiences and those identification points of separate beings, and we get into that pure source light that we all are.
Right. What made you get involved in the Galactic Summit and all? I mean, you have so many of these people on your podcast. What
Yeah,
drew you to that?
it's been just reflective of my journey, as I have my podcast, and I think it's similar for you. It's like, we were actually talking about this before we get started. There's kind of a vetting process. It's, who do you feel resonance with? And so a lot of like who I have at any given point is like, oh, I come across their work, and then it's so relevant to me that I'm like, oh my God, come on my
Right.
podcast. I want more people to know about you, um, and just have a fun conversation. So that's really, but I think, if I go back to the source point for when I started having more galactic conversations on the podcast, I think when I had Ruben Langdon on, that was kind of like the entry point. So Ruben is the creator of Interview with Extra Dimensional
Oh,
on
yes.
Gaia.
Uh-huh.
And I just so happened to have the opportunity to meet him for a project that he was working on, that he interviewed a friend of mine, and my friend took me, and I didn't even know who he was. I'd never heard of that show before. I didn't even have Gaia until a few months ago.
Oh, okay.
Um, and but I was like, I was fascinated by the work that he was doing. I didn't really know a lot about channeling, and he was interviewing all these channels. So I learned a ton I learned a ton and met a ton of people through Ruben, and I think he was pretty much one of the first more galactic guests that I had. Although I think it was episode like 93 or something. And I was interviewing my spiritual mentor, who I had had a lot on the pod. I had a lot of earlier episodes with him. Um, and we decided, I was like, I feel like we need to talk about aliens. And it was just coming into my interest at that time.
Right.
And I was, this was, I don't know, 2020, 2021, something like that. So I feel like every day it gets less weird to talk about that kind of
Right.
thing. It's more
Totally.
accepting. People are more interested in accepting of it. But at the time, I was kind of putting myself out there in terms of just like, it was still kind of fringe, more fringe, I think, than it is now. And so we record the episode. I do the editing, and the audio is all chopped up for part of it, and it's like repeating. It's like a DJ went in and like
Huh.
chopped it up, and it was hilarious. Like it came through so funny. My voice starts sounding British at some point.
Oh
It's
my
like
God.
it's skipping and it's going and I'm like, what is this? And it was just for about 30 seconds. There's another part where it just goes, and it was hilarious. Like I couldn't stop laughing. Every time I listen to it, I can't stop laughing. But it was really interesting because we used the same software we'd always used, same equipment, same editing software, and it was like, what just happened? And everything was fine while we were recording it. But it was very interesting that it was the very first time that I talked about aliens, and we had like really bizarre interference.
Huh.
For me, it felt like, yeah, we're here and,
Right.
let's play. So
Right.
I did love that.
Let's talk about, what's so funny? Like I looked up, I go, I think I'm saying the time wrong. There's no way it's been like 45 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
That went really fast, but
Yes.
we're still good.
Okay.
For the sacred geometry, let's go to that
Yeah.
because I know you talk a lot about that. Explain your connection to that because that's so fascinating. Because that Roxiva light,
Oh.
the strobe lights over your eyes, this the strobe light is only shining light. It's like, when we were little, we had strobe lights in
Hmm.
our bedroom, or I did.
Yeah.
There's no like any kind of design, right? It's just light. And that's what it's doing. But your brain is creating these sacred geometry things. And it is
Oh.
so, so I was very, yeah, it's very interesting. It's crazy.
Yeah, that is fascinating. I don't really know intellectually what my connection is with sacred geometry, but I know that it plays a big part in my human life. So, my one of my very first metaphysical experiences, and when I say metaphysical experiences, I'm talking about that hypnagogic state we were talking about where I was trying to fall asleep one night and I couldn't fall asleep. And all of a sudden, I had these flashes of these symbols, and they were colored symbols. And it was like I was looking at a void, but then all of a sudden, these symbols came in really fast. And it was like, choo, 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 choo. And I don't even remember how many symbols it was, but I had no idea. I had no frame of reference. I'd never had anything happen in that state before. And I knew I wasn't sleeping. Uh, and I was like, what in the world just happened? And um, and so that was kind of, and now looking back, I'm like, well, that was geometry. I don't remember if they were platonic solids or if they were more like mandalas or what, but that was the precipice of a huge awakening, a very, very fast awakening that I had. Um, and everything kind of sped up from there. And so eventually, not right away, but eventually I started hearing about sacred geometry and learning about it. And I was like, I want to learn how to draw this. So I took some classes to learn how to draw it. I was having really unusual experiences. Like I paid for this course, but it was a self-paced course. So I was kind of like not very dedicated to doing it regularly because things are busy.
Right.
But I remember being at my neighborhood pool one day on a weekend, and I couldn't stop thinking about drawing it. And I was like, I really want to just go and do one of those lessons and draw. And I'm just laying on this lounge chair, and finally I pick myself up and I go home and I start drawing, and I get really engrossed in it. I can't remember what the shape was that I was drawing. And the next thing I know, it is storming outside. And I had just been laying out at the pool. I mean, literally, I came home, I changed out of my swimsuit, and I went and started doing this. And the next thing I knew, thunder, lightning, the whole, it was like a huge thing. I was like, how did that happen so fast? Like, I not only was just laying out, but it was fine. It wasn't like it was stormy outside. I was shocked that the weather changed so fast. And but sacred geometry is it's energy. And weather is energy. Like it, and so for me, I'm not saying that like I caused this storm with the sacred geometry. I don't know what came first. If there was an atmospheric change that I couldn't see, but it was in the air and it corresponded with me, like having this really urgent desire to go and
Huh.
ground these shapes, and to get immersed with the sacred geometry, or if it was, somehow these two things went together. And then I created a course, like a workshop, a 4-part workshop that I was running live. You can now get the recording of this on my website, but and I'm sharing about that. Like, yeah, there's power with these. It's energy, and I'm sharing that about that experience. And several of the people who were on this Zoom were, sorry about that if you can hear the, uh, oh, I am on Do Not Disturb, but my daughter's overriding it.
Oh,
Sorry
funny.
if you hear
Well,
the
at the
ping.
beginning, my daughter was she just went to college second day, or really it's today's her first day, and she's FaceTiming me when we first started talking on this computer. And I'm thinking,
Oh,
what is that little stinker?
yeah.
Like,
As the word
decline.
again. Yes. Oh my goodness. But so this same thing happened the first, it was either, I think it was the very first workshop lesson that we had. And several of us were local, but we were all on Zoom. And here's the storm, the sirens start going off. The same thing happened in
What?
my the second summit that I hosted. um, Luckily, I was in my basement, but I'm hosting this Reaching Through the Veils Summit, and I have 10 speakers who are talking about connecting with the other side. The weather had been predicted for that one to be storms, but a tornado touched down 3 miles away from my house at the end. Like at the when we're the last
Wow.
speakers wrapping up, and I'm like, you guys, the sirens are going off. I have to go. I've got to find where my kids are and all of this. But so it's just very interesting. We can kind of see our lives as siloed, but it is this underpinning energy. But I have been very deep in sacred geometry the last probably like 6 weeks,
Oh, wow.
drawing
Okay.
it every
Huh.
day, drawing specifically very drawn to the Sri Yantra, which is a um, more of a Hindu mandala, like with all of the nested triangles of different angles. But it's hard for me to say, like, this is what happens with sacred geometry because it's so individual, it's so mysterious. It's the sacred geometry is the foundation of our reality. And so it's not like do this breath work and then your nervous system is going to behave this way and your mind, like this part of your brain responds in this way. It's like not like that as far as I know. It's much more mysterious, much more individual. But I know that through my dedication to drawing this particular geometry every day for about 6 weeks, I think, maybe more. My dreams now, a lot of my dreams, I'm in these long hallways and I'm in long rooms. Like I can see, like the shape of the rooms that I'm in are very long. I go at these angles, like it's sharp
Huh.
corners, like all of these things. And I look back on my dream and I'm like, oh my God, I was in the geometry, but there was this whole like story. It was all covered up, but I
Right.
can tell from like how long everything is. I'm like, oh my God, I was in the Sri Yantra, or I was in part of it anyway. That's happened a few
Wow.
times where it's just like it's like the ratios of the space that my consciousness is creating with the dream screen, the dream scene, however you want to think of it. But it's like they're taking on these proportions that are very noticeable to me. And so I guess as I'm saying this, I'm like, ooh, next, next thing I want to do is notice it while I'm dreaming, because I'm not noticing it until I wake up. And then I'm like, oh, everything was long again and everything was straight
Huh.
until I had to make that, turn, that
Wow.
sharp turn. And
Do you know the name of the, because everyone's listening right now, if they're all drooling because they want to do
yeah,
this. Do
the
you
Sri
know,
Yantra.
is that how they
So
find this class?
that's, oh, the class. Oh, so the class is on karagoodwin.com, and I spell Kara
Oh,
with a K.
okay.
And so I have I think it's under more. Like I've got a lot of things on my website. So if you go to like the more section, there's a sacred geometry series there. And then, but I've been thinking I should teach people how to do the Sri Yantra as well. Maybe I'll just do like a one-off for that because I've gotten so much from it. But it's so mysterious and and I've given a lot because I'm drawing them so much. They're overflowing. So I've been giving the Sri Yantra to people. And then I'm getting this amazing feedback from, like, I had a friend who was starting a new job and she was feeling anxiety and she just had the idea, like, oh, let me look at that thing Kara gave me. And she's like, I calmed down so fast. I just, let myself breathe while I was looking at it. And she's like, I can't believe how fast I calmed down. I've had other people who um, have meditated with it, with their hands on it, and they're like, what they can feel with their hands, they're they're blown away. And so it's like there's just it's so mysterious. It's kind of there
Wow.
for me. It's like this shortcut. It's like this hack to expand our consciousness and go deeper. Um, but again, like I haven't been really interested in trying to find like what research I can find. I'm just in the doing and the
Right.
experiencing, you know.
Oh, I'm so excited. You opened up a whole new can of worms. Like, I'm down another
Yay!
rabbit hole after we
Yeah.
get off. Oh my gosh, that's so fa In fact, when I was understanding sacred and I saw you drawing it on Instagram, I saw something what you're drawing,
Uh-huh.
and I'm like, okay, she's really into sacred geometry, but I didn't know it was, I mean, that is so cool. Oh my gosh.
There's so much there for us.
Oh, I want to talk about, I know we're coming to the end. Are we good still? Are
I'm
you?
okay. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The heart coherence is something that Kara Goodwin resonates with me. She's in my ear about. Can you, maybe we could end on that and then share with everybody how they can find you and all the things.
Yes. So the heart is such an important part of our consciousness. And, when I started my spiritual practice, my meditation practice, it was the way that I was taught, it was all about the brain, and a little bit on the heart. But the heart is, if anybody's looked into the Heart Math Institute and the research that they're doing, these are scientific studies where they're finding that the heart emits this energy field of its own. And it is that's how we can connect with people. We naturally come into coherence through the heart. If we're heart centered, we can connect with other people beyond time and space. We don't have to be in the same room, but we start to synergize. And it also happens within us and as individuals between the heart and the brain. And if we actually have, I can't remember how many more thousands of neurons or community, however they register the influence. A lot of times in the West, we're taught the brain is the control center. The brain is telling the rest of the body what to do. Everything's coming from the brain. Well, actually there are thousands of more receptors from the heart to the brain than from the brain to the heart. And so when we are conscious about coming into the heart, and when I say coming into the heart, I mean just being aware of it. Like I like to think of it as dropping my eyes and my ears down into my heart. And so it's as though I'm perceiving the world through my heart. And we can just intend that energy strengthen and that it grow. And as it strengthens, it can start to bring the brain into greater balance. It can start to influence the waves of the brain and we all are familiar with the brain wave states, and we can have like more erratic, you've seen like when they're doing a brain detecting, and
Right.
everything's sharp and it's erratic. But if we can, when the heart is leading, then it synergizes and it becomes rhythmic. And so there's just so much happening through the heart. And it's got its own energy field, and we can expand that and strengthen it so that it is kind of informing the rest of our energy field. So it's very, very powerful. And like that can be a beautiful part of our meditation practice, where we're coming into and utilizing the heart. One of the things that I really enjoy doing is running a group. At this point, I call it a manifestation group. Um, I used to call it the Power of Eight, which is Lynn McTaggart's. That's how it
Hmm.
started, Lynn McTaggart's work. So it technically is a Power of Eight, but there's an Indigo Girls song called The Power of Two. And every time I came across this group where I was writing an email or whatever, that that song would come in my head. And it's a beautiful song, but it was on like way too heavy of a rotation. And I was like, you guys, I have to change the name. I can't call it Power of Eight anymore because the song is haunting me now.
Oh, funny.
And so I changed the name. But basically, we do it on Zoom, but we're bringing everybody gets a week in the group, and they create an intention, and we're all tuning into our hearts, and then feeling or imagining that our hearts are beaming to the person in the center, in our imaginary center. I invoke this. Imagine that we're in this crystalline temple, we're in this safe space and we're with our divine teams. And this person in the middle, we're beaming their intention. So they've created their intention of what they want to work on, what they want to bring into their life. And each of us is beaming that from the heart, and also imagining that all of our hearts are coming together in coherence and creating like this energy field that is in this coherent state. It's in this state of love and compassion. And we've had some amazing results through that practice. But it's kind of limitless with what
Right.
the heart field can do.
Oh, so fun. I love it. So your book that I just finished reading, listening to your voice, the whole whatever, how 8 hours of it. I loved it. Your
Thank you.
authentic awakening. And I'm around, I teach it around schools around here. And when I was listening to it, because it is so I don't know, it's easy to understand, but it's the core principles that are so important to incorporate into your life that I feel like, wouldn't that be amazing if I knew my daughter Presley at high school right now was reading your book and the teacher was talking about it? Like those kind of things is what it evokes in me. Like that's where I want to see the world turning to,
Yes.
is having Kara Goodwin and like what's what class are you in today, Press? Oh, I'm learning about your authentic awakening. But
Oh,
explain that your book and it's like the things that you talk about, like the connection with your higher self and, the turning off the all the social media and the technology and becoming quiet and everything that you said. That's why I was like, you are me and I am you. Like, it's
yes.
like, I mean, you wrote my book. Okay, I guess I don't have
Yeah.
to. But yeah, it's one of those books where I really felt, I thought, gosh, if they could teach this, even Paige, I mean, in college would be amazing. Like what she wastes her time on today with all of her classes, and they don't even matter. It's
Yeah.
just such a shame to know, but I know we're evolving and I know it's changing and shifting, and I'm just holding my higher thoughts of the education system all transforming into this beautiful, uh, authentic awakening.
Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you. That's so beautiful. And yes, I've tried to just use the things that I have learned, the things that have been so important for me, and that I have, and also the stumbles along the way, the watch outs, the things of like, don't go down this tricky path that I went down, um, or at least watch out for these risks that might not be so good for you. But one of the things that you mentioned is like a media fast. And that can be so important. It's so easy to be pulled in to the harder. Well, you were talking about it at the beginning of not going so low, when you drop down and when you get frustrated in traffic or when you have a frustrating experience or you get triggered, your baseline is higher than it used to be.
Right.
You don't drop down so low. And it's like, that's beautiful that that's been your experience. And we can work on getting to that point. We don't have to, it's not always just like by the grace of God, suddenly we are like that. There are choices that we make all day long, and we can be more conscientious about the choices that we make that are in favor of amplifying the light that we are and living more in alignment with the truth of who we are. And the truth of who we are is that source light that we've been talking about. It is that spirit that is animating this body rather than just the body and the thoughts. And so it's the ways that have been really effective for me to change my perspective and to live more from that place. And I just personally enjoy my life so much more with this expanded perspective and experience of really trying to be, again, that authenticity of this is really who I am. And I know that there's this game going on, and we're all kind of pretending to be our work persona or our parent persona or our community persona, depending on, we might be kind of chameleons with who do I need to be in this situation. There are times where I still struggle with that, where it's hard to shine and like flaunt all of my colors if I'm in a situation where I feel like I need to be more conservative and more, like it's just hard to,
Mm-hmm.
you know, point out when it's like we're really buying into the matrix right now, and
Right.
um so there is some nuance and there is some like, okay, sometimes I do just feel like I need to play the game because the things are going to fall on deaf ears, or I'm going to be misunderstood, or they're not ready for what I really think about this thing.
Right.
But there is this opportunity to keep making choices that are in alignment with our highest good and with what I would call a higher version of ourselves, where we are more of that expression of the divinity that we are, and we're really letting that shine.
How do you have, how old are your children?
18 and 15.
Okay, so 16 and 19. How
Yeah.
do you, what do you do with that? So I'm picturing when you're saying, like, sometimes people aren't ready to hear me say things like that. How do you parent? And then we'll be
Yeah.
done. Sorry.
Yeah,
It's
no,
okay.
this has been so much fun.
Okay.
I am pretty light-footed in terms of my beliefs um, and and imparting them on my kids directly. In terms of, I did actually, when I was starting to explore meditation, my kids were a lot littler then, and I tried to implement, let's just spend a few minutes of deep breathing before we go to school. And it did not take long at all until they were rebelling so much against just that. It was like, no, I don't want to breathe. And we're
Oh,
not,
funny.
and it was like, whoa, this is like, now they're getting angry about
Right.
something that was supposed to be this like magic formula, this alchemical thing that we did before we started school to get us off on the right foot. And I was like, okay, this is really backfiring. And so really what I focus on is modeling more than anything. Um and they pick up on it. Like I can tell just by the things that they say, the things that they'll point my attention to, like, oh, mama, look at that, and um if it's something to do with like peace or like,
Right.
I can't think of a great example right now, but it's like the things that I remind, like, I remind them of, would that be right? Or something reminds them
Yeah.
of me.
Of you.
And then
Right.
they send that to me, and I'm like, oh, that's a nice thing to make them think of me.
Right.
Um, but I'm kind of just, I really don't want them to rebel against the things. So my daughter went through a really difficult medical issue that culminated in surgery, a major surgery last December. And the lead up to the surgery, for years, I had been trying a lot of alternative things. And I do think a lot of them helped, but none of them were the silver bullet that we needed to kind of get over the line and out of the surgical, where it's like, okay, clearly we need help here.
Right.
And that, and time will tell what she does with that as she gets older. But because we never found that silver bullet, I think for her, it felt like a lot of intervention of a lot of different things that we were trying, and a lot of, from her perspective, unsuccess, not
Right.
success. And again, that's because I think there's that childhood, like, okay, I'll just do this one time and it'll fix everything. And if that's not the case, then it doesn't work. And so she was really getting to that point, and also becoming a teenager, a preteen teenager, um, where it was just like, no, I don't want that anymore. I don't want to do that. I don't want to go to that. I don't want,
Right.
and I just want the surgery, is
Right.
kind of where we evolved to. And so that was an experience of, like, she is her own person and she has her free will. And I'm trying to help her make the best decisions that I can, but I also need to honor who she is and what how she wants to be. So, um, yeah, there's a lot of times to be humble. I'm sure you have those too.
Yeah.
And and a lot of like just surrendering and
Right.
hoping and praying. They're in my prayers every day. Not that they become what I am or that they think the way that I think, but just that they be guided and that they be protected and that they have divinity walking right there with them every day. And they may never sense the invisible hand that is guiding them, but it's like a beautiful practice in releasing my ego and
Mm-hmm.
just being like, okay, you guys can do what you feel compelled to do, and I'm always here if they
Right.
want to know more.
Yes. So with my girls, they were little and I did like gratitude journals when they were drawing stick figures in the car. We cleaned out our closets because we're getting new floors. So I said, look at all your gratitude journals, like they
Oh,
would look back and say, what they were grateful for. So they've had that and we did these on Alexa. It would do like 3 minute meditation before I would shut the door and I don't know if they did it, but that would be their go to bed type thing.
uh-huh.
And, the little things you plant, right? And
Yeah,
that I model. But then, you see now, like you were saying, that I'm not going to sit there and drill this in your head and make you think this way because you are your own person. But it's
yeah,
so cute to listen to when they do, like you said, like, oh, it's a flower. It bloomed. That little seed I planted,
yes,
like,
right,
oh, yay. So those are the moments as for me as a mom that when I just see that little flower bloom that I planted how many years ago, where she sees it, or I've had we have retreats and we have podcasts and and they always are listening to me talking and oh, mom's podcast or something, they'll go to the breath work things with me, or they've done, all the Kundalini stuff, I'll introduce them to stuff. But it's not like you don't have to go every time. But when they say they want to go, I'm like, okay,
that's
okay, let's
awesome.
do it. But,
Yeah,
but it's fun to be, every phase of life as a parent is so fun. And I think the college thing last year was really hard on me even though she was only going to school here. So it wasn't like I had to fly there, which
Mm.
that would have been a wreck. But,
Yeah.
but understanding that it is time to go, it is time to move on, it is time to learn and experience your independence and decisions and choices and all the things. But it's just this stage of my life and yours, it's just getting so much more fun to watch as they
Yes.
start to make their own decisions and when we're not there and how they're going to be in the world is
Yes.
just fun for me
I
anyway.
agree. Yes.
Kara, I could sit here all day with you. See?
Likewise.
Oh my gosh. It's just like, shoot, I really don't want it to end. Anyway, I've loved it.
Me
Everyone can
too.
find you on your website, Sacred
Yes.
Geometry. I'm doing that.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Go to your Instagram. It's Kara underscore, wait, what is it?
I think it's Kara_Goodwin_meditation.
Meditation. Got it.
Yes. And the
Okay.
website is karagoodwin.com. And all my podcast episodes are on soulelevationpodcast.com. And yeah, this
And
has just been a
everybody
blast.
that listens to this will want to be listening to you because it's all the same. I mean, not the same, but we're all
They're going to,
you're gonna be following your podcast because it is so good. I can't wait. And now I'm
oh,
like jotting names down. Oh, I need to connect with them to interview. So it's
yes,
fun.
yes, yes. Well, thank you so much. This has been so beautiful, such a heart-centered conversation. Amazing questions. You're such a gentle and yet powerful soul, and it's really been a joy and an honor. Thank you,
Oh,
Ashley.
thank you, Kara.